Today, let's look at cross-sections and, most importantly, the band style for the cross-section views. What we have in front of us is a existing conditions plan that shows at one point this was designed as a corridor, and now it's just a road with some feature lines. Okay, so this is we're not looking at a corridor here. We're just looking at existing grade with a bunch of feature lines. So pretty simple. The first thing we need to do is have the sample lines that we're going to use, and the sample lines set where we are doing the sampling. So we can see that we have an alignment going from the top of the screen down to the middle of the screen where we have this loop road here. I'm going to call this road here the single road 1st Street, and the loop road is going to be called 2nd Street. So we're going to go ahead and go to our home ribbon, and under the create design we have it's under the profile section views. We have the sample lines here. My ribbon is being compressed a little bit because of the screen recording. So, create sample lines. The command line tells us to select an alignment or press enter to select from the list. So I'm going to hit enter. And there we have our list of alignments in this drawing. I'm going to choose 1st Street. And we have the create sample line group dialog box. We oftentimes will use a customized style for most of what we do, but the sample lines are typically not even plotted on a production drawing. So the style of the sample lines really isn't important. I think the most important thing for a sample line, for the most part, is that it's using a non-plotting layer, so that it doesn't plot by accident. So I'm just going to keep my sample line style at standard and the label style at none, and you'll see why I mean that in a second. I'm going to hit OK. And now we have if you zoom in on my mouse cursor, you can see that I have that red elastic band stretching from the alignment, and it's hooking up, and it's always staying perpendicular. Okay. So we can randomly pick one. I'm going to randomly pick one right here around station 841.92. Okay, and this asks me to enter the swath width of 30 feet to the left. Sure, I'll take that default. And the right, 30 feet to the right, take that default as well. Hit enter. And there we have it. That white line is that sample line. So that means we now will have a cross-section at whatever that station was, 841, give or take. And we can keep doing that all the way down the road, of course, but that would become very tedious. So what I like to do is use the sample line tools bar, which opened up for us automatically. And this drop down here, which is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th button from the right, and there's a little arrow drop down, we can choose add a station. Currently it's set up on add a station mode, and that's why when you can just pick. Okay. The other one would be the typical one to use is by a range of stations. So go ahead and click the by a range of stations. Then we get a final dialog box here that gives us our final options as far as do we want it to start from the alignment, yes or no. We can do true or false. I'm going to go ahead and use true. And the typical swath width, there's our 30 and 30. And we're going to use sampling increments, yes. True. And we're going to do every 50 feet. Very good. And I'm going to hit OK. And we can see we have many cross-sections sampled here at this point. I'm going to hit Escape to complete the command. And you're going to see automatically, you're going to see right away that these sample lines are typically not going to be wide enough at 60-foot samplings. And so you can select one of the sample lines and drag them out, and I can move my mouse anywhere. I'm still going to be I'm constrained to being perpendicular to the road alignment. Pick right there. Same thing, I can pick this one over here. That too will get tedious also. So we need to be able to access all the sample lines in one section, one location, and we can do that. If we go to the prospector and we find the alignments and we drill down, we open up center line, and there's our first street. And our sample line groups, we now have one. There's the name SLG1. That stands for sample line group number 1. That's the default naming. Okay, the naming really doesn't matter. And you can see here we have a list of all of our sample lines in the bottom half of the prospector. Okay, we can scroll left and right. These are our left offsets. We can change the left offset to 45 on this one, and just type 45 in that one, and that would be section sample line number 2 at station 50. Let's go take a look. There it is. Station 0 and station 100. There it is. There's 50. You can see that it's larger than this one here. Okay, so we have control there, but still that is a little bit cumbersome to do the entire road, for example. Okay, so we still have yet one more area. If I were to right-click on sample line group number 1 and right-click and choose properties while in the prospector, we have the properties for the entire group. And we can start on the left, the information tab. This is very standard. Name. Next tab over is sample lines. And here we have, again, they're all listed here. I'm going to type 60, 45 again, and 45 again. And if I hit update, apply, it would update. But that's still a little cumbersome, so what I like to do is select them all. So select the first one in this list. Scroll down, holding the Shift key on the keyboard. Select the last one. While holding the Shift key, click. I'm going to type 55, enter. Type 55, enter. See that? It did a global change to every single one, 55 left, 55 right. Just by having them all selected, and while using my Shift key, I clicked and I changed it to 55 and hit apply. Well, let me move this around and off your screen a little bit. I'm going to hit apply and take a watch over here in the drawing window. Watch them. Look at that. They all jumped to 55 left and 55 right. And that looks about right. I mean, we can still see that we're going to miss a couple. I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to go back here and hit OK. You can see that they're going to miss quite a bit. So I can open this up a little bit by hand there. And this is probably more appropriate of using that dragging method. Okay. The onesies, twosies, but for the most part, you can see that the 55 left and 55 right is probably the right size to use. Okay, so we have our sample lines. Do we know what we just sampled? We don't know yet. So right-click on the properties again. Let's go ahead and take a look at sections. We haven't actually sampled anything yet. That's okay. So let's go ahead and click the button that says Sample More Sources. We only have one. So look at this. It's already sampled the existing grade. And it's sampled it as style standard. And I like to use the NHTI existing grade. Okay. Now hit OK. And hit OK. Very good. So this drawing is very simple. It just has this surface as an alignment, and it has all these feature lines. We'll get to those feature lines later. Okay, now we are ready to actually plot a section or two. So let's go ahead and do that. Back to the Profiles and Sections Views panel of the Home ribbon. Find where it says Create Section View. Let's just do one at a time for now. Go ahead and pick OK. And the first thing we're going to notice, we're hooked up to just First Street, and that's we only have First Street listed because we only have the one sample line group. Sample line, we're going to pick which sample line we're going to do. We can pick 14 or 15 or 17 or 28, or we can go ahead and click this green button here and select from the drawing. When you do that, give it a second and let that dialog box shut off for a moment. And now we're in the drawing, and let's just pick station 900. There we go. That would be SL sample line number 19 at station 900. Okay. Now we have the section view style, and let's go ahead and change it to the NHTI 10 scale. Click next. And the offset range, here we go. Automatically, based on the sample line group, there's our 55 left, 55 right. Or we can override and do some more. I'm going to keep it on the automatic based on the sample line group. Click next. Elevation range. I'm going to use automatic. Again, this is based on the actual samples that it has just taken for us. Okay, and click next. Section display options. This is one that gets new users tripped up a little bit. The label set, we have two options. We have standard, and I've created a label set called no labels. And the no labels is actually the correct one when you're doing an existing grade surface, because of the irregularities, you don't want to label each grade break in your cross section. So I'm going to go ahead and change NHTI. And the sections, we're here. We're actually talking about the sections themselves. And this is the Blueberry Estates existing grade new surface name. I'm going to change the style from standard to NHTI existing grade. Very good. Hit OK. And click next. And the data bands. I am going to hold off on this for now because this is the point of this whole movie, is to try to talk about data bands. I'm going to go ahead and just leave this alone here. And finally click the button that says Create Section View. And the command line tells me where to put it. Identify the section view origin. I'm going to put it right here. Let's zoom in on it. Okay, so this is the 10 scale. Unfortunately, the drawing is at 50, so I'm going to change the drawing annotation scale to 10 scale. There we go. Much more reasonable. And you can see here's the section itself. That's the dash line. That's where we chose the existing grade. I'm going to change this for this demonstration a little bit. I'm going to exaggerate the vertical. So I'm going to edit that section style right now. I'm going to select one of the grid bars and choose Edit Section View Style. And I'm going to choose the Graph tab. So again, Information tab is always the leftmost tab. Now I'm going to choose Graph. And I'm going to change the current vertical exaggeration to 2. And then I'm going to hit OK and move this out of the way. There we go. So we start to see some exaggeration. Let me do one more exaggeration here. Let's go to 3. There we go. So the information hasn't changed. The only thing that's changed is the visual plotting of it. But what we can see now is we have a panel up here. It could be a sidewalk. We have this little jut down. That's probably the curb. And now we can see the crown of the road. There's the top of the road, and you can see both lanes. Very nice. So that's kind of the point of exaggeration. So finally, let's get to the data band. This cross section looks a little plain, and that's because there's no data band on it. So let's go ahead and change that. So go ahead and pick this. Pick the section view itself. Right click. Choose Section View Properties. And bands. Here we go. I have one built already called NHTI EG-FG, and that stands for an existing grade and finished grade. Well, we don't have a finished grade in this case, do we? We just have the existing grade. So let's go ahead and make a brand new band style that doesn't have finished grade in it. So what I'm going to do is, under the band type, we have two options. We have section data and we have segment data. Okay, and the section segment, we only have a segment. If you take my mouse and look at my mouse, that mouse is pointing to a segment. The mouse is now pointing to a different segment. The little vertical portion of that curve is a segment. Okay, we can get very detailed on these bands. Let's go back to the section data. And the section data is going to be what we really want 9 times out of 10, and that is the existing grade elevation here, 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 at the offsets. So let's go ahead and click Standard. Use the drop down to the right and say Create New. On the Information tab, I'm going to name this new band style underbar NHTI-EG. And in the description, I will write NHTI existing grade band style and band details. This is very complex. I always recommend we move left to right on these dialog boxes, and this is no exception. Let's take a look at the title text. We'll compose the label. I don't want a title. Okay, if you look at the, I'm going to reset that view. Oh boy, start that preview over. I'm sorry. Here we go. For the band style, this little blue box where it says the word section data, that's the title box. And in some cases, that's a nice thing to have. In our course, we're not going to do a title box for the band because it's extra fancy. I'm sorry about that cough. So I'm going to hit OK. First thing I'm going to do is hit OK, come back out of there. I don't want the title text to appear. The easiest way to do that is to go to Display and find the band title box and just simply turn it off. Same thing for band title box text. Just turn it off, okay? And let's hit Apply, and then go back to band details. That, by turning it off on the Display tab, the title text will now just not show up. Okay? So let's move to the right of this dialog box. Now we have major. So here we have labels and ticks. Where do you want them? At the major increments, minor increments, center line, sample line vertices, grade breaks, and incremental. For the simple NHTI approach, we're going to continue, and you're going to use this as major increments, minor increments, and centerline. And we're going to ignore sample line vertices, grade breaks, and incremental distances. And to make sure we do that, I'm going to go back to the display. I'm going to scroll down, and I'm going to verify that I have incremental distances turned off, labels at grade breaks turned off, labels at sample line vertex turned off, labels at centerline turned off. I think we need to turn that on, actually. Yeah. We want the labels at minor, we want the labels at major, ticks at grade off, ticks at sample line vertex off, ticks at centerline on, ticks at minor increments off. Turn those on. Ticks at major increments on. We've already turned the band title box text off. Band title box itself is off. Okay, so this is going to set us up for the most simple approach. Okay. Now let's go ahead and go back to band details. We can now easily ignore these three sections, the sample line vertices, grade breaks, and incremental. And now we can focus on major, minor, and centerline. So let's start at the top, major increments. Now take a look at the right-hand part of this panel. We want small ticks at the top and the bottom of the band. Yes, we do. And the tick size, we'll start with a tenth. That might be enough. Same thing on minor. Let's set the minor up to the same. So major and minor, small ticks, top and bottom, tenth and a tenth. Very good. Let's do the same for centerline. Small ticks at the top and the bottom, tenth and a tenth. Good. So at this point, now the ticks are all going to be the same. Now let's go to the major increment. Finally, we'll click the button that says Compose Label. Okay, this is just like composing the labels for offset alignments, regular alignments, points, you name it. The first thing we have under the components is called distance from centerline. Okay. One of the things that I find useful when designing new styles for a part of my plan set is to look at some examples. And I have this example plan set that was donated to us for this educational component. And what it shows is a cross section. It shows a existing grade. Here's the existing grade. We show the proposed grade for this road. We show a proposed swale or roadside ditch. We show a couple things. We show the right-of-way here at negative 25 and positive 25, and that makes sense because many right-of-ways are 50 feet wide. But the band in this case is this part that says negative 60, negative 50, 0, all the way to the right now is positive 60. So the band in this case includes the numerals, and these are all what? These are all major increments. The major increment in this is 10 feet, so negative 10 to the left, positive 10 to the right. And the ticks, here's a major tick that we have some above and below. The minor ticks are only above, and these minor ticks are what? 2, 4, 6, 8. So these are 2-foot minor ticks. And notice there is no label for minor ticks. Okay. And this is the centerline tick here as station 0. So let's go ahead and go back and let's zoom in on just these two here. The 0 and the 10 and these 2-foot ticks. Let's try to recreate this type of a band in our style. So we're on the major increment, and the distance from centerline component has a good name, distance from centerline. Let's leave that alone. The anchor component is the feature, and that's where we want it to be. And the anchor point, we'll start at band middle. We may decide to change this throughout our design, but we're going to go ahead and leave it at band middle. Text height, I like to have text no smaller than 0.08. So I'm going to actually start with 0.10 for my text height. And this little preview window, if you zoom in with your mouse wheel, it does actually show what we're talking about here. And what this is showing here is our major increments are now 10.00 and 10.00. And they have a 90-degree rotation angle. Zero angle is to the right or east, and 90 is straight up or to the north. So let's go ahead and adjust that text itself. Alright, so in this text component editor, I have selected all the code in the right-hand part of this panel. And I'm going to keep it as distance from centerline. I have distance from centerline side, left to right. That would be offset from centerline. Okay, we have elevations. Let's go ahead and keep it on distance for centerline, and set that to a precision of 1. And then go ahead and hit the right arrow. That sets the change of precision, and I'm going to hit OK. And you can see already that the major offset has changed. Okay. But how does it look on this example? It looks like the majors are set up not with a 90-degree rotation, but a 0-degree rotation. So let's go ahead and change that. We'll change the rotation angle from 90 to 0. Click there. Very good. Alright, and the last thing before we leave here is the attachment of the text itself. So the 10, 20, 0. We're going to set this up at middle center. And let's hit OK. And let's hit OK. So far, the only thing we've done is turned off the band title box, the labels at everything except for major, minor, and centerline. Let's go ahead and hit add. So we're adding this band style to our section view properties. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. And I did this on purpose. I knew that we still had these minors showing up, but I wanted to get something on the screen so that we can work with. And I think that's important. When you're just starting out, it's very hard to know how your changes are going to be implemented until you actually see them on the screen. So we're still a far cry away from this with our design of our band, but we're getting closer. And the one thing that I like to do when I'm designing bands is, okay, it still looks okay, kinda, but instead of drilling through the section view properties and then drilling into here and then drilling into there, notice if I hit apply, there's nothing changing on the screen because I'm 3 dialog boxes deep. If you were to go to the settings tab of your prospector, scroll down to section view, scroll down to band styles, and open up section data. There is our brand new NHTI EG band. Go ahead and right click that and edit directly. And if I close this box and let me change something. Oh, I'm going to change the display. I'm going to change the band border from color yellow to say color pink. I hit OK. And this is why I like doing it this way. Now I hit apply, and you can see the change immediately happens in the background. Whereas if you are going in through the section properties view, band editor page, band style itself, now I have to hit OK, OK, OK 3 times before that change happens. Whereas if you go from settings tab, find your actual section data, and directly edit it, you can have these things real time changing on you. So I'm going to go ahead and change that back to yellow. And let's go back to band details. I'll hit apply to put it back to yellow. See that? And let's check our model. We don't want numbers. We don't want numbers on our minors. So let's go ahead and turn those off. Back to display. Labels at minor increments. Turn those off. Hit OK. There. Getting even closer. Okay, very good. Edit the band style. Now, where do we want these station offsets? Do we want them right in the middle of the band? No, we actually don't. We actually want those station labels above or below the band. Okay, take a look at the model. What the model doesn't show is that this model here does not actually have the labels of the elevations plotted. We're gonna take this model and expand upon it a little bit. Let me see if I can find one that looks like one. Here's one. Here's one that shows a little bit different approach on how to label cross sections. Here we have the offsets are labeled to the top of the band, and the elevations are labeled vertically with a 90-degree offset, a 90-degree rotation, at the locations. And you'll notice, take a look at this one here. We have existing grade to the left, existing grade to the left, existing grade, and now we have a portion that has proposed grades. Take a look at how we handle that. Existing grade elevations are vertically aligned to the near and labeled to the nearest tenth, whereas finished grade elevations are labeled to the nearest hundredth. And we're splitting the two right down that tick. Okay, so existing grade to the left, finished grade to the right. Let's try to mimic this at this point. Go back to the design, and let's select major increment, compose the label, and find the distance from centerline. Where do we want this? We want the distance from centerline to be at the band top. And I'm going to hit apply on that. Hit OK, hit apply here, and see where they jumped up to. They jumped up to the top of the band. Getting good, getting closer. Go ahead and compose that label, and we can do an offset of, say, 0.05 positive. Hit apply, hit OK, hit apply. Still getting closer. Okay, still not what I want. I want that text to be off that band label. So I'm going to go ahead and compose label. And look at this. It's attaching to the middle center. So if I were to set this to the bottom center, still with a 0.05 offset to the Y, hit OK and hit apply. Now that's what we're seeing. That's what we wanted to see. Okay, very good. And we can probably even get rid of the negative sign too, because the negative sign is kind of superfluous, if you ask me. So go ahead and click the compose label, find the distance from centerline component, click that, select the code in the right hand part of the panel, and over here, sign, drop sign, and hit OK. Hit right arrow, it changes the code, hit OK, hit OK, hit apply. There we go. You see how it shifted everything over? Remember, we're attaching that bottom center. So this 30 is now attached right about here. And it's because we get rid of the negative sign, it falls nicely in line with our ticks. Beautiful. Next, let's go ahead and start the next one. So go back into major increments, compose that label. Now I'm going to add a new component. I'm going to do a new text component. I'm going to call this name existing grade. And the anchor component is the feature, yes. The anchor component point. I'm going to go to band middle again. All right, let's take a look at what's happening. I'll do that in a little bit. Let's go ahead and change that to a negative 90 degree, a positive 90 degree rotation. Trying to get to the right section data. There it is. So if I zoom in on now we can see what we have for this entire band so far. Now we have our offset numbers at the top, just like we want them. And there's the label text that we just added. That's what we're talking about here. Notice the word label text, and then we have label text. It literally is previewing what that style is going to look like. I'm going to hit the ellipsis button. I'm going to select the code over here, which is some characters, delete those, and I'm going to drop down and choose Section 1 Elevation. And I'm going to set the precision to a tenth. And I'm going to go ahead and choose right arrow. And there it is. Hit OK. Now I have some numbers in the previewer. The numbers are a tenth of an inch tall, and they're set up middle center. Now that's going to be hard to do all the time because your elevations are going to be, some are going to be 3 characters, some are going to be 2 characters. So I like to set numbers like this when they're vertically oriented to holding middle left. And you see how they shifted up all the way, because that's saying the middle left of that text is at the band middle. Okay, so maybe we set the band, the anchor point, to the band bottom. Now we have to give it a positive offset, so let's go 1/10. There, it's jumping up nicely. Okay, before we get too far, I'm going to change the color of that text from white to green, or number 3. And I'm going to turn on the background mask. Very good. While I'm here, I'm going to do the same for my distance from center line. Change that color from white to green, maybe yellow. And also turn on its background mask. Okay. And I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to hit apply. Now we have some elevation showing up. Okay, we're getting good. We're getting closer now. We're getting closer. Let's move this thing over here and hit OK. And now I'm going to shift this is what our section looks like right now. I'm going to shift the window over so that I can see our center line here. All right. And we're going to go back into editing it directly. And let's work on the center line increment. Go ahead and click the button that says Compose Label. Distance from center line, we have that right now as the 0. Oh, this number here, right here, is the 0. I want to change that from 0.05 tall to 0.1 tall, and apply. And get rid of that 90-degree rotation, and I want to put it at the band top. Okay, hit OK, and let's hit apply. So we're getting closer. We're getting that offset to move out of the band area and up above the band, just like we did for the major increments. Okay, we're not done yet, of course. Go back into the Compose label, distance from center line, select it, find the ellipsis button, select a code, change the precision to 1, right arrow, hit OK. And the attachment, again, is going to be bottom center, just like we did on the majors. Band top, I think we popped them up about 5/100. I'm going to change that color on the center line to yellow and activate the background mask. Hit OK, and let's see how we did. Hit apply. Good, just like we wanted it to do. Perfect. Now, while we're in here, we're going to deal with the centerline elevation. And now we need to add a new component. I only have one right now. Add the new text component. Call this centerline elevation. We're going to anchor this to the feature. Yes, anchor point is the band bottom. Contents. I'm going to get rid of that code over here and choose section 1 elevation to the nearest 1/10 of a foot. Put it there. Hit OK. And we're going to rotate that 90. And the attachment is middle left. Going to change the color to green and the background mask to true. Hit OK and hit apply. Okay, so we missed one part. We need to hop it up the 1/10. So let's go ahead and go back into the Compose label. And we're going to go choose centerline elevation and add the 1/10 Y offset. Hit OK. Hit apply. There we go. Very good. Okay, so we've got the texts working. We have the centerline offsets working. Let's take a look at our model again. This model here is a little less detailed because it doesn't have tick marks happening. Okay, and let's take a look at this model here. This model does have tick marks, and the tick marks are above and below the line for majors and just above the line for minors. And they don't have the elevations. Let's try to mimic these ticks in our style here. So, the next thing we need to talk about is where that band is attached to. So hit OK, get out of that editor. We're not done the band, I know that. Okay, but take a look at the way the section is plotted. Right click on the section itself and choose Section View Properties. And go back to the bands. Okay, so information to the left, and then count 1, 2, 3, 4 tabs. There's the band tab. Notice that gap. We have a gap here of 0.25. What happens if we go to 0 gap and hit apply? Hit OK. With a 0 gap, the band actually gets shifted up 1/4 of an inch, and now we have our tick marks on the bottom of the band, but we have our offset labels above the band. That might be what you want. I don't know. Again, let's try to get this tick. Try to get this tick configuration in our style. So the first thing you see is I want to get those centerline offset numbers to below the band. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to Settings, scroll down to Section Views, open that up, find my band styles, open that up, find my section data, open that up. There's my NHTI EG, right click, choose Edit. So, what do we want to do here? Let's get the major increments offsets below the line. So, major increment, compose label. Distance from centerline. The attachment is at band top, and we're using the attachment of the text as bottom center. What happens if we changed that to top center? Hit OK, hit apply real quick. Okay, so now the text is being hooked up over here. Remember, we have that offset, so we're not done yet. So go back in here. Look at this offset. Let's go to 0 offset on the Y. Hit apply. Hit OK, hit apply. There it is. So now the top center point of these texts, that's that 40, 30, and 20 that we see, are precisely at the yellow line and that gray line. And we see the text masking is happening here. That's why we see the yellow line kind of getting hidden there. You can check compose label one more time. And let's do a negative offset, negative 0.1. Okay, hit apply. There we go. So now we have our station offsets below the tick lines, and we have our elevations inside the band. The only thing I want to do now is bring those elevations up a little bit. Go back to compose major increments, switch to existing grade, change this Y offset to say 0.25. Hit apply, hit OK. Take a look. Not too bad. Okay, very good actually. And remember, we have to do the same thing for the center, right? So I'll move that over here just so we can see what's going on. Choose the centerline ticks, label and tick. Hit compose label. Move this out of the way. And let's set it up so that the distance of centerline is band top, attaching to the text top center with a negative 0.1 offset. Apply. Good. Go back in there. Let's deal with the elevation now. From the component name, drop down, choose centerline elevation. It is the band bottom, good, but we'll hop these up, what? 0.25. Hit OK. Hit apply. There we go. See a jumper up over there? Now, let's take a look at our model. They don't have any ticks below the numerals, so let's go ahead and get rid of those. Turn those off. Turn those off. So we have to do major increment and centerline each time. Hit apply. Oh, look at that. We also have to do the minors too. Turn those off. Hit apply. There we go. Now we have that band line. Let's maybe get rid of that. band border. Turn that off. Hit apply. Let's hit OK. Take a look at our handiwork. So now we have a band that is going to plot the elevation for section 1 plus the offset from the center line at 0 or 10 or 20, and it handles the ticks. Okay. Now, sometimes you end up getting the offset. You can put the offset, and there's the 40, the 50, for example, in the section style itself. And if you did that, then the band would not need it. Let me demonstrate. I'm going to choose that section properties. Right click, section view properties. Get rid of this one and change it to our EGFG. Click add with a 0 gap and hit OK. Look at that. So now that one there, actually the offsets are they are incorporated into the band set. And now we have the existing grade on the left and the finished grade, proposed grade on the right. In this case, they're the same number. 0.76 rounds up to 0.8. Okay, and that's because we only have the one section in this section sample. So, and that band style, I'm going to show you where I set that. Section view properties. Go to the bands. Notice this. Section 1 is sample line group number 1, existing grade. Section 2 is sample line group number 1, existing grade. So they're pulling the same data. Okay. So why don't we, while we're in here doing this demonstration, why don't we straighten up this band style to get rid of the box and get rid of those negative numbers. So I'm going to click the button here. Now I'm going to click Edit. I'm going to turn off band border, and I'm going to go to my band details, find my major increments. I want to get rid of the negative sign in front of the offset. Find the offset component. Hit the ellipsis for contents. Select the code. Change the sign to drop sign. Hit OK. Right arrow. Hit OK. Hit OK. Hit apply. Oh, I have to go out one more time. See, that's why you have to. That's why I like to edit them directly, because you have to hit OK, OK, OK too many times. Hit OK there. Okay, getting better. Let's get rid of those tick marks on the bottom. So I'm going to edit it direct at major increments and get rid of the tick marks. Oh, it's not in here. It's right here. Same for minor and same for centerline. There we go. So there's one band where the offsets are to the bottom, and if I switch the band under section view properties, I'm going to get rid of that, and I'll add just the existing grade with a 0 gap. Now that puts us the offsets above with some ticks on the top. We have some fun with this. You know, that's precisely the point of Civil 3D styles, is you can make the deliverable plans exactly the way you want to. All right, so let's go ahead and drop that grade back down to section view style. I'm going to change that vertical exaggeration back to 1 because I like it at 1. Makes it easy. I'm going to hit save, and the next thing I'm going to do is incorporate these changes back to my template. All right, I hope that helps, and you guys have a great day. Thank you very much.